show that is called Real Shame. I don't know why I laughed right there. It's a show where we review movies, we talk about movies that are from our list of shame or movie blind spots, basically movies that we haven't seen, probably should have seen, and now are seeing. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Adam.
I'm Andy.
All right. Earlier in the week, we were talking about The Man Who Would Be King, which is a Rudyard. I'm never going to get that right. Rudyard Kipling story adapted for the movies. And you decided to pair that up with another movie based off of one of his literary works. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be
Gunga Din. It's spelled D-I-N, but according to the poem, it rhymes with words like queen. So it's Dean. And also they say Dean in the movie. It's Gunga Din, not Gunga Din. Don't say Gunga Din. Sergeants Cutter, I've said it too. Sergeants Cutter, McChesney, and Ballantyne are members of the Royal Engineers who are tasked with traveling to the village of Tantrapur to repair a telegraph wire, as well as to find out what happened to the British soldiers that were stationed there. They've mysteriously disappeared. Yeah. Their findings lead them to discover a murderous cult. So together, they risk life and limb to stop this cult, along with their Bisti. Bisti is like a water carrier, guy who runs around with a goat skin, carries water. Their Bisti, whose name is Gunga Din.
Well, I'm waiting for an explanation. Speak up, McChesney.
Well,
speak up!
We were swindled, sir.
We? Who swindled you?
Well, we don't want to make any charges until we have further proof, sir.
Further proof? Well, you practically wrecked a village. You surely didn't do that, McChesney, without proof?
Well, sir, we had our suspicions.
Suspicions of what? Come on, I've no time to wheedle the story out of you.
Well, sir, we bought a map.
One?
From a private in a certain Scottish regiment, sir.
No, I did it. I bought the map myself, sir.
Now, listen. Don't you try to shield your friends, Cutter. And it won't do you two any good to hide yourselves behind Sergeant Cutter's generosity. Now, come on out with it. A map of what?
Well, of Lake Singale, sir.
Yes, sir. And the privilege of diving into it to our heart's content.
Diving for what?
For emeralds, sir. A barge full, sir. According to the information I bought, it was sunk in the year 241.
So Gunga Din is adapted loosely from a poem written in 1890 by, again, Rudyard Kipling, but it's combined with elements of he did a short story collection called Soldiers 3. He has 3 soldiers in there. I wrote their names down, and I hopefully will say these correctly. Leroyd, Mulvaney, and Ortheris. They're almost like 3 musketeers. So they basically took, he had passed away before this movie came out, but the screenwriters of this film kind of took elements from Soldiers 3, these crazy 3 soldiers that they had, combined it with this character Gunga Din from this poem Gunga Din, and made a story out of it. So it's not a verbatim adaptation of either the poem or any one of these stories, but kind of a hodgepodge combination of those. It was directed by Mr. George Stevens. George Stevens directed movies like Swing Time, The Greatest Story Ever Told, Shane, the movie Giant, one of the 3 movies that James Dean completed, but he did not see it. He was passed away before it came out. Diary of Anne Frank. Howard Hawks was actually attached to direct the film at one point. Howard Hawks had worked with Cary Grant on Bringing Up Baby, which we did a few weeks ago, a couple months ago. I don't know how long ago it was. Whatever. Is time? In the past. What is time? But Howard Hawks was dumped in favor of George Stevens. It was written, I think, principally, it had a few writers and had a few people that worked on the screenplay. You know how things go in Hollywood. You got people doing uncredited work. You got people doing credited work. But I think one of the chief writers is a guy named Joel Sayer. The story itself was come up with. It was come up with. I don't know. These 2 guys came up with the story. Ben Hecht and Charles MacArthur, they had worked together before. Ben Hecht wrote a lot of screenplays. He's another guy that did a lot of credited work in Hollywood. He worked a lot of screenplays uncredited, a lot of famous screenplays uncredited. He's actually portrayed in the movie Mank, which we did in December. He's one of the many people, one of the many real life people in Hollywood in that movie. But Ben Hecht and Charles MacArthur, they had written together. The two of them wrote the play 20th Century that was adapted into a film starring Clark Gable's wife Carol Lombard. They also did The Front Page, which was later reworked into His Girl Friday. And notably, The Front Page and His Girl Friday both feature a character who wants to leave his profession and go get married, just like in Gunga Din, one of the soldiers wants to leave the military and go get married. In this case, he wants to get married to Miss Joan Fontaine. Uncredited early work was done on the screenplay by author William Faulkner. Yes, Sound and the Fury, Absalom, that guy. It stars Cary Grant. Of course, we saw him, as I just mentioned, in Bringing Up Baby. He played David Huxley to Katharine Hepburn in that film. I know she stressed you out. It's funny because Cary Grant in this movie plays a guy named Archibald Cutter. Cary Grant's real name was Archibald Leach. Remember, Michael Caine was Maurice Micklewhite. Well, Cary Grant was Archibald Leach. But he plays Archibald Cutter in this film, Sergeant Archibald Cutter. Victor McLaughlin plays Sergeant McChesney. He was Will Danaher, fights John Wayne in The Quiet Man, which we did not too long ago. Douglas Fairbanks Jr. plays Sergeant Thomas Ballantyne. Of course, Douglas Fairbanks Sr., his father, huge film star, did Zorro, did Robin Hood, one of the founders of United Artists, along with his wife, Mary Pickford, and D.W. Griffith and Charlie Chaplin. Joan Fontaine, who I mentioned a second ago, she plays Douglas Fairbanks Jr.'s love interest. He wants to get married to her. She plays Emmy Stebbins. She was not a huge star at this time, but the year after this, she did Alfred Hitchcock's Rebecca, and to the moon she went. Cecil Kellaway has an uncredited role as her father. He's in movies like The Postman Always Rings Twice and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, as well as a lot of other stuff. And Sam Jaffe plays Gunga Din. Of course, this is 1939, so you had people of Caucasian persuasion, people who were Caucasian putting on makeup and playing Indian people in the film, which obviously not something that would happen today or should happen today, but this was 1939, so things like that did happen then. Not justifying it, just saying that's contextually that's so the sort of thing they did. So a lot of the Indian roles in this film are played by British actors or American actors who put on face paint. Robert Coote is the last guy I was going to mention. I only mentioned him because he plays Higginbotham in this film. He plays a different character in another Kipling adaptation a few years after. He actually is an adaptation of Soldiers 3, which is one of the story or collection of stories that they took elements from for this movie. He plays a different character in that film. So this is a movie, just like Man Who Would Be King, that I have seen once before. So this is my second time of seeing it. And as of this filming, anyways, this film is not released on Blu-ray yet. Still not released on Blu-ray. So it's interesting because this is I would say a fairly well-known film, and the year that it came out, 1939, was chock full of well-known films. We'll talk about that later, but first, just like Man Who Would Be King, I'm assuming you've never read Gunga Din or Soldiers 3, nor have I. I did read the poem after I saw the movie. I read the Gunga Din.
You did better
poem.
than me.
I did not read the entire Soldiers 3 story collection, but what kind of did you know about Gunga Din going into it, if anything?
Yeah.
And what are your thoughts?
Didn't know a thing about Gunga Din.
Diddly squat.
Diddly squat.
All right.
In it. I didn't like this movie as much as I like The Man Who Would Be King.
Really? Okay.
I
that's actually contrary to what I was thinking. I thought you might like this more. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it feels a little it doesn't feel very cohesive to me. It feels very like it just feels broken up and stuff. So I don't feel like the story of the Soldiers 3 and really play well into the ending of them coming across the thug clan, the group of people. They call them thugs in the movie.
Shades of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom,
which I like a little bit of that stuff.
Yeah.
But
I would say it borrows heavily from this film.
I'm sure. So I just feel like that stuff feels very disjointed to me. It doesn't feel like it's a very cohesive story. I know that, basically they go out there and that leads them to find at least Cary Grant's character Archibald Cutter defined that story. I guess the other part is like I never really understood like the like treasure madness or why Sergeant Cutter kept on wanting to find these treasures and all that kind of stuff. It just didn't feel I don't want to say earned. It just felt random to me more than anything.
Yeah.
It just felt like they were checking like a character box, and I don't get why it was that way. So that's kind of where it left me. It just felt very like disjointed, and the last half of the movie didn't feel like it was like that's where the movie was going by watching the first half, right?
Yeah.
And one of the scenes is like, when they spike the punch, it's just like nothing comes of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it does.
Well-
They do it because they want Higginbotham to drink it.
Just
they get him to drink it.
Higginbotham?
Because everybody remember the major and the other guys come in.
Well,
He's
they
like,
try to stop
no.
him,
He's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I don't. He's like, there's a fly in here. He doesn't want them to drink it. They just want Higginbotham to drink it.
But
And then once he drinks it, they put a potted plant in there, so
and
nobody
the
will touch
plant
it.
droops.
Yeah, and it kills the plant, which is fun. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just feel like there's other ways to go about doing that, and maybe that's just me like splitting hairs and stuff like that. Because like if you're gonna spike a whole punch for a whole party, I mean, there's the idea that more than just one person's gonna drink it seems pretty feasible to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
yeah.
maybe that's supposed
I
to
think
be
you're
like
splitting hairs.
yeah, splitting hairs, and maybe that's supposed to be the comedy and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where it left me. Maybe it was just I wasn't like in the best. I don't think I was in a bad mood, but maybe I just wasn't as receptive to this movie when I watched it. But I there's aspects of I like it. I like the three actors that played the three soldiers. Like
They're
I thought
great.
they were all good and interesting, and I liked how they kind of started off with Cary Grant being almost like a devil may care kind of person, and like they're fighting and brawling and stuff like that, and I kind of wish maybe that continued a little bit more. I don't know.
He's like, let that man go, and he just like
Drops
it
out the window,
yeah.
which is awesome.
Yeah.
And that's a very like Indiana Jones thing to do, right? So I get shades of that and pieces of that, and so that overall the story just wasn't cohesive enough for me. I felt like so, but I do think the actors were really good. I liked. I wasn't the biggest fan of who was trying to quit. Was it
Douglas Fairbanks?
Douglas Fairbanks,
Yeah, Junior.
Junior. I wasn't the biggest fan of him, of Sergeant Valentine, but I did like Sergeant McChesney a lot too. I
Yeah.
think he was interesting. So.
Victor McLaughlin. And big burly, barrel-chested Victor McLaughlin.
He's got to take on John Wayne.
That's right. Yeah, if you're going to take on John Wayne, you better be big, burly, and barrel-chested.
So that all being said, just kind of thought it was good. It just wasn't, like I said, I felt like it was a little disjointed. But this is your second time watching it. So what'd you think about the movie this time around?
I enjoyed it a great deal the first time, and I enjoyed it a great deal this time. I think this movie's a lot of fun, and I think the three guys really make the movie. And I find a lot of the movie very funny. I find, a lot of the humor definitely lands for me. Let that man go, and the potty plant dying because they spiked the punch. Basically, they spiked the punch with some elephant elixir.
Yeah.
Elephant elixir. So if it's
I
strong,
like the
if it's
elephant.
strong enough for that. Yeah, the elephant's awesome. Annie.
Annie
the elephant.
All the scenes with the elephant's awesome.
Very cool. Yeah.
And
Okay.
how like wasn't it McChesney who had like the connection with Annie the elephant
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So I like he's like talking to her and trying to get her to take the
He's like,
spoonful. Yeah.
this is so good.
That-
He's acting like he's taking the elephant. And
All
he's
that stuff's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, I think it's really funny. Again, Douglas Fairbanks Jr. He's trying to get married, and of course his buddies are like, "No, man, you don't want to do that. Your life will be over." It's basically, I can see that happening in a movie now, like a rom-com now or something, and it does happen. This guy's like, "Oh, don't get hitched."
And there's nothing redeeming about his fiance at all in this movie. No, she's
I don't have a problem with Joan Fontaine.
She's like the wettest of the wet blankets, I feel like.
No, she's like, hey, you're done with your military service. We're supposed to go get married. You're gonna get into the tea business or whatever. But I like they're picking out curtains, and as he's walking out, he's got like the curtain stuck to his back.
Like a wedding, it's just wedding train or
all
whatever.
that stuff. I feel like the three leads are really, really great together, and they all do a great job. Douglas Fairbanks Jr. I mean, looking at him on screen, I'm like, he's kind of like he's the Brad Pitt. He's a good-looking guy. He's like the Brad Pitt of his time. Blonde-haired, short blonde-haired guy. Obviously Cary Grant's a good-looking guy as well. Victor McLaglen, not a good-looking guy, but
manly man.
Yeah, he's the Rock basically. He's the Rock or Vin Diesel or whatever you want to call him of that era. But I think the movie's a lot of fun. it's filled with enough adventure. I love the part where they're fighting the members of the cult and they're throwing dynamite and they're climbing up on top of rooftop. I especially like the part where the guy picks up the dynamite, he's gonna throw it up, and they shoot him before he can throw it. He just blows up. Like you said, the stuff with Andy the elephant is all a lot of fun. Because obviously it's a trained elephant, so he's doing she is doing little tricks, and laying down and destroying the jail to get Cary Grant out of jail. I think I do understand your criticism of maybe it not being as cohesive, and I think maybe that's the hodgepodge kind of nature of how they came up with the story. But I think there's enough there to make this movie really, really watchable. I feel like, and that's why I made it a point to mention, not that anybody's gonna watch this that's is ahead of a Blu-ray label is gonna be like, we better get on that. But I do think it's weird.
Kino Lorber.
I do think it's weird that it doesn't have a Blu-ray release. But when we did Bringing Up Baby, I think either that didn't have a Blu-ray release at the time, or Criterion had just announced a Blu-ray release at that time. So it's not unheard of. I mean, obviously, there's tons of films, old, new, that have not really seen a proper Blu-ray release anywhere in the world, not just in the States. Because I thought maybe Gunga Din was released in Region B or something. I didn't see where it's been released at all, and I think that's odd because I think this is a really fun movie. If you watch, because some people refuse to watch black and white films or refuse to watch films that are this old, but hopefully you're not one of those. Otherwise, I would wonder why you're even watching this episode. Why would you be interested in a film from the 30s? But I think this is a lot of fun. It's a really, really fun adventure flick. Again, there's some questionable stuff, as far as actors portraying Indian actors that are not Indian and stuff. But, again, that's something that, unfortunately they did back then. So, but if you can get past that kind of stuff, I think that this is a fun movie and was influential to Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. So it's also kind of fun if you've seen Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom to kind of see kind of where some of that their ideas came from. Because in both movies, it's a Thuggee cult that worships Kali. And both of them talk about Mother Kali or Kali Ma or whatever will rule the world and that kind of stuff. So there's definitely some similarities there. But I think it's a fun movie.
And I thought, even though, I thought Sam Jaffe did a pretty good job as Gunga Din, and I like the part where he's, doing the same kind of drill movements that they're doing and all that stuff. And then you see, I think it's Cutter, right, who comes up to him and is just like,
Cutter.
He's just like, he's like, he's like, good job, doing that kind of stuff. And, it felt earned, and it felt like, this guy's a nice guy because he sees this guy who wants to be part of the military, and he's kind of going through the paces with him and stuff like that.
And Gunga Din is the guy that saves the day at the end. So that's a cool.
It's Chekhov's trumpet.
Yes. Yeah. All right, so I mentioned earlier that 1939 was a banner year for motion pictures, and I'm not kidding. 1939 is considered by most, well, I don't know about most, but many critics and scholars as the absolute best year for motion pictures. And the reason why is because so many, not false to me.
Did Jurassic Park come out then?
I'd say, no, it did not.
Exactly.
But due to the sheer dearth of important movies that came out in 1939, and I know you're asking yourself, Andy, do you have a list of movies that came out in 1939 that are important and famous? Yes, I do. So I'm just going to list those off. Gone with the Wind came out that year.
Yep.
Wizard of Oz, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, Of Mice and Men, Stagecoach with John Wayne, Ninotchka with Greta Garbo, Wuthering Heights, Love Affair, which was later remade as An Affair to Remember, and which they used elements of Affair to Remember as Sleepless in Seattle, so that owes a debt to Love Affair transitively, I guess. Goodbye Mr. Chips, Dark Victory with Betty Davis, Hunchback of Notre Dame with Maureen O'Hara, who we also saw in The Quiet Man, and Charles Lawton, The Hound of the Baskervilles, yes. Dodge City with Errol Flynn and Joan Fontaine's sister, Olivia de Havilland. Only Angels Have Wings, also with Cary Grant, same year. Young Mr. Lincoln with Henry Fonda, The Four Feathers, The Women, also with Joan Fontaine, who's in this movie. Gulliver's Travels, the animated Gulliver's Travels. Private Lives of Elizabeth and Essex, and Destry Rides Again with Jimmy Stewart. And one more movie there were other movies that came out besides those, but those are probably the most important ones. And to some of you, are going like, "Why'd you list that one? That movie sucks." But I think all those movies, I've seen just about all those. I think all the ones that I've seen are pretty darn good. But there's one more movie that came out in 1939 that I thought I would mention because it's another adaptation of a Rudyard Kipling novel called The Light That Failed, and it stars Walter Huston, father of John Huston, who we talked about in the last episode because he directed The Man Who Would Be King. So it's all 6 degrees of John Huston or something. I don't know what it is. It's 92% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, 74% audience score. No Siskel and Ebert review, but Leonard Maltin loves this film and he gave it 4 stars.
All right.
Alrighty. So
viewer questions. All right. So we decided to choose a viewer question that was pertinent to the movie reviewed at the beginning of the week, and that is, what are some of our favorite Sean Connery movies? Sean Connery, well-known, well-regarded actor. A lot of people's James Bond. When they think of James Bond, they think of Sean Connery. Sir Sean Connery.
Who's the best Bond? And you're Pierce Brosnan. You're in the
Pierce Brosnan fan.
I think Sean Connery is my favorite.
And there's no wrong answer for saying Sean Connery.
You're right. You're right. Even Lazenby. You could pick Lazenby.
Lazenby's good.
He is good. You can pick Timothy Dalton. He only did 2, but you can do him as well. Whatever you want. You can pick him.
So, do you have a couple? I mean, obviously we talked about the Bond movies. We both watched the Bond movies recently. He did a really good job in the Bond movies.
Your favorite movie I already know is Untouchables.
Yeah.
So we don't need to go any further. I say that jokingly because Adam doesn't like the Untouchables.
I do not. He was in Zardos. I mean, classic.
Gotta love that outfit that he wears.
Gotta love that outfit.
That's some people's favorite movie.
He
that outfit.
He played a Spaniard in Highlander, which is a choice. He was great in like Hunt for the October. He was great in.
Yeah.
I liked him in.
He's great in Finding Forrester, which we did.
Yes, he was great in Finding Forrester. Look for that episode. I thought he was good in Entrapment. Like, he didn't have like a big meaty role in Entrapment, but I liked him there. I like him in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. It's not a great movie, but I like the idea of all these famous. I know you haven't seen it.
Yeah.
But all these famous men and women from fiction, coming together and it's from comic books and solving crime and doing things together. So you have, the Invisible Man. You have, Alan Quarterman who Sean Connery plays. You have Dorian Gray. It's just I like that idea. I think it's great. It's a Alan Moore comic book, if I believe correctly. So, Alan Moore. I just covered a whole bunch of his stuff. What else do you want to call out?
Obviously, I don't think either one of us are going to pick Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, because he's only in that at the very end of the movie. But that's a good movie, I thought. People are like, "What? That movie stinks." But I liked that movie. I have an idea of what yours is, although
Probably.
I think yours could oscillate. It could bounce between 2. I feel like, but I feel like I know what I do know what yours is. I think you pointed out a lot of major stuff. I don't know that there's anything. I mean, obviously the Bond stuff. He did some 70s stuff that's cool. Presidio with Mark Harmon. Did you ever see that?
Nope.
It's okay. Time Bandits is cool.
Time Bandits is cool. Terry Gilliam.
Yeah. His filmography got a little thin towards the early 2000s because League of Extraordinary Gentlemen was the last live action thing he did.
Yeah, I don't think that went over too well with critics, and he was just like, "It's time for me to retire."
Yeah, he's like, I'm tired of this. First Night with Richard Gere, another.
I haven't seen that. I need to watch that.
It's been a while since I've seen it, but I remember it being kind of fun. So I've got my. I think my runner-up would be your pick. I know what your pick is. Or my 2 runner-ups might be your top 2 picks. If I know what your second pick would be.
I'm curious what you think my second pick would be.
Why? I'll say it when you say your first pick.
All right. Well, we all know what my first pick is going to be. And it's going to be The Rock.
Okay, so I thought your first pick would be Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and your second pick would be The Rock.
Shit. Crap. Yeah, you're right. I'm wrong.
Okay, I was gonna
You're
say,
right.
because my first thought was Adam is gonna say The Rock, and then I
Yeah.
thought no, he's gonna say Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and I was like, well, I know those will be the top two.
Yeah.
But I was pretty sure Indiana Jones.
You're
Okay.
exactly right because Indiana
Last
Jones
Crusade.
and Last Crusade is my favorite movie of all
Okay.
time. So
Okay. Well, that was a glaring omission.
yeah, it's clear. I don't know where that went. Hey, what do we do? What do we do?
You had a brain fart.
What are we doing here?
Well, that's,
Who am I?
That's what happens when you do this all in one take. We're put on the spot. We're
Yeah.
like, oh crap, I forgot about that one. Yeah.
Laziness makes us look bad.
Yeah. No, it doesn't.
Yeah, no, of course. I love Indiana Jones Last Crusade. I've said that numerous times. Favorite movie of all time. I've declared it so in the last couple of years. And The Rock's a good follow-up.
Yeah, a fantastic movie, and I like both of those movies a heck of a lot. I think Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade would be my second pick.
Oh.
But my first pick is not The Rock either. My first pick is a movie that we are going to do at some point on the show because you haven't seen it, and I feel like it is criminally underseen. It is a Sidney Lumet film that he did in 1971. I've loved this movie since the first time I saw it on VHS way back in the day. It's called The Anderson Tapes. It's a cool heist kind of movie.
Yeah.
Basically, Sean Connery wants to rob an apartment building and rob every apartment in it.
Oh, that's
And it's an apartment building of a bunch of rich people, so
Nice.
that's why he wants to rob the apartment building. But it's cool. It's got a good cast. Christopher Walken, I think it's his film debut. So very, very early Christopher Walken role. If it's not his film debut, it's damn close.
Before
It's
The Prophecy.
very, very way before The Prophecy, way before Deer Hunter and all that stuff. Well, 7 years before the Deer Hunter specifically. But yeah, it's very cool. I think Sidney Lumet, very New York,
Yes.
kind of movie. So Anderson Tapes would be my pick, but Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade is an amazing film, and obviously everyone that's watching has seen that movie. But if you've never seen Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, you're missing out.
Yeah.
Because it's a great film.
No, you're right. The Anderson tape sounds awesome. I wanted to ask you real quick, what's your favorite Sean Connery Bond movie? Do you remember of the ones you watched?
Yeah, I'm partial to. So on this most recent watch of all the movies, I really love From Russia with Love. So my favorite was always Goldfinger.
Yeah.
But From Russia with Love actually might edge that out. I think I don't remember what I said when I was talking about that on the show. I said one of those
me
two,
either.
but it's going to be From Russia. Ask me on any given day, and it might be From Russia with Love or it might be Goldfinger. But it's one of those two. Those are great. And Dr. No, I don't think is bad, but I think those two would be it'd be one of those. We'll say From Russia with Love right now.
I think mine was Diamonds Are Forever.
That's a good one. I like that.
So I don't.
Diamonds, with Tiffany Case.
Yeah.
Diamonds Are Forever.
So I don't
Yeah,
know.
good stuff. And we're excited for the new Daniel Craig movie
Yeah.
whenever they release it. No Time to Die.
Hopefully soon.
Hopefully, I think it's at this point it's still November, right?
Yeah, I think so. but
2021. So we'll see.
Delta. I heard that like Netflix offered like some obscene amount of money to release it on Netflix, and they're like,
I would
no.
rather see that in the theater. I would rather see
Yeah.
that on a big screen.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be
I mean,
cool. Hopefully.
yeah. I hope. Okay. All right. That's it. That's obviously I don't know what my favorite Sean Connery movie is, but
Well, you threw me for a loop. You said The Rock, and I was like, really? It's not Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade?
that's why you have friends like this that can make sure
I know
that
you
you're
so well.
not
I know you so
making
well.
stupid mistakes like that. Let us know what your favorite Sean Connery movie is. Leave it down below. Maybe it's the Anderson Tapes. That sounds like an awesome movie. I love heist movies.
And maybe it's Zardoz.
Maybe it's Zardoz. Maybe it's Terry Gomes.
Unironically, Zardoz.
Yeah. You know what? Yeah. Maybe you just want a hairy Scottishman in a red bikini. I probably shouldn't say anymore because I'm gonna probably offend someone. So yeah. Hey, let us know. Leave a comment down below if you're watching this YouTube, or shoot us an email, realshame@gmail.com. Let us know what you think of Gunga Din.
Gunga Din.
If you know someone who puts out Blu-rays, hook them up with us. we're gonna help you sell at least 2 Blu-rays of that movie, right? And hey, why aren't you in business? Okay, we're on tangents here. Shoot us an email @realshame. Post on Instagram @realshame. Like, subscribe, share the show, do all that kind of stuff. And stay tuned next week as we watch some movies from your list of shame. And we'll see you soon, guys. Bye.